Going live. Woo, woo, yay. Alright. So last time we read about what was that? The book Hibiscus Town. And then we read about the other book about no, the play. That one was the play. The white-haired girl? No. The white-haired girl was the other book that I'm going to read about next, I guess. Oh well. Let's continue on. The glowing vision of abundance offered by the market vignettes that conclude Hibiscus Town disguises a problem that the book despite itself, cannot resolve. Apparently, there is something worse than starvation, even in the view of these mountain folk for whom food is supposed to be everything. Gu Hua's narrative suggests that the darkest hour before reform were those that introduced social chaos and moral confusion. The extremist politics of class struggle precluded even the small pleasures of laughing together at a ragout of squash leaves. At a ragout. The feast for the mind indulged in during the hard years of collectivism had, after all, certain genuine satisfactions. Even in the depths of a famine, shared thoughts of food cannot fill empty bellies, but they can help people while away the long night together. And hope for a better future is bolstered by a continuing engagement with the drama and promise of the Chinese Revolution, mixed with the bitterness of the famine. There had been hope that could be sustaining thoughts there had been hope that could be sustaining thoughts that could be a feast, and food that, however nasty, could be a political statement. That probably sounded weird. I'll reread that sentence. Mixed with bitterness of the famine, there had been hope that could be sustaining, thoughts that could be a feast, and food that, however nasty, could be a political statement. By the time Hibiscus Town brings up through horrific tales of class struggle and betrayal among neighbors to a restoration of free market, the novel appears to have achieved a clarification of value in relation to eating. Food is found to be the foundation of communal human life. Free markets, moreover, are good because they allow people to feed each other directly without interference from above. Not politics or ideology, but food and people are what counts. This is an oversimplification, in that it attempts to reduce the needs of simple folk to food, in its usual patterns, clothing, and shelter, alone. Moreover, as the text admits, only shadows had not completely withdrawn from people's hearts, whether it is the left extremists who are imagined to haunt the future, or some less familiar ghost of an emerging, unprecedented global capitalism. The new market order does little to exercise them. Chairman Mao had at least been willing to sketch the contours of a communist future, and there is little doubt that this vision captured the imaginations of ordinary people throughout China. The market, however, while filling people's stomachs more effectively in Hibiscus Town, offers too little food for thought. In the reform period, a feast for the body has replaced the mental feasts that once filled the long hungry nights of the famine years. The duality is intentional, informed by a populist idealism that presumes that food for ordinary people, food is all. I'm sorry, that presumes that for ordinary people, food is all. But some collective situations are worse than hunger. The 3 famine years were lightened by jokes and memories, but what can be said of those darkest days of the Cultural Revolution, when even the most enthusiastic ideologues were brought low? Townspeople who had suffered at the hands of local politicos are shocked when Red Guards from the north arrive to struggle against the more familiar hibiscus oppressors. Um, these rough and impetuous Red Guards, with their northern accents, their heads swollen with power, use their leather belts to thrash that self-professed true leftist Li Guoxiang into silence, unable to plead her case. What kind of times were these? When felt when everything false, evil, and ugly took the place of everything true, good, and beautiful. The unreal uncannily displaced the real. Red became black. These were times when cows' livers and pigs' lungs, wolves' hearts, dogs' stomachs were all fried and stewed in one pot, when justice was vilified and humiliated. People plodded through a pathetic existence, and factionalism was rife, its firestorms raging out of control. This is a political situation that calls reality into question. Conjuring up images of unthinkable food and unlivable Armageddon, no one wastes any sympathy on Li Guoxiang, who had long alienated all the right thinking people of the town. But how can ordinary people swallow the confusion of this unexpected development? It was difficult enough, the narrative suggests, to live with the excess of the town's true leftists in the name of party ideals. These abuses at least left the moral order of the world intact. When Red Guards arrive, they might as well be from Mars, and with their northern accents and turn everything upside down. Existence became pathetic indeed, an inedible stew of ghastly combinations, the opposed kinds of leftists performing political contradictions with direct bodily donations. bod- the opposed kind of leftists performing political contradictions with bodily domination are like wolf hearts and dog stomachs. Whoever thought they could be cooked up together in the same pot, horrifying pot. The white-haired girl is much tidier, of course. In effecting its neat reversal of oppressors and oppressed, the extraordinarily vengeful closing of the play is perhaps best understood as a clean-up operation. If the revolution is to be complete, the landlord class must suffer exactly as much death, hunger, and humiliation as the peasants did in the old society. They must be deprived of the grain they have stockpiled so it can be redistributed to the poor, and some, in parallel with old Yang at the beginning of the play, must pay with their lives the debt they owe to the tenant farmers. Only after this revenge has been accomplished can a future. Sorry, with I'll start one sentence ago. Um, and some, in parallel with the old Yang at the beginning of the play, must pay with their lives the debt they owe to the old tenant farmers. Only after this revenge has been accomplished can a future free of oppression, because it is classless, be imagined. Hibiscus Town, appearing 40 years later, with its easily classified good and evil characters and a structure that neatly moves us from a free market through a compulsory politics and back to the free market again, also performs a significant clarification. The people of Hibiscus are depicted as simple producers and consumers, meeting their needs through exchange both in markets and on ritual occasions. As these activities return to prominence, the human and the natural. As these activities return to prominence, the human and the natural are redefined for the reform period, or perhaps I should say for the moment, because ambiguity remains, and both the past and the future are haunted by politics. The final words of the book make this clear. The town's truly leftist sloganeer, now demoted to ordinary citizen, had been disturbing and upsetting his former victims with his shrieks and howls about class struggle. Finally, he is banished for the cure to a mental hospital, and Yu Yin's husband, Hibiscus's intellectual, pronounces a valediction. Doesn't every city and town now have a few wandering, raving madmen? They are the last words of they are the last word of a pitiable, regrettable era. This remark seems to put a firm cap on the damage done by ideologues. Political enthusiasm has become mere raving and historical error, naturalized as madness. Yet every city and town has a few of these last words roaming its streets. Yet every city and town has a few of these last words roaming its streets, unsettling the memories and disrupting the hopes of moderate, cautious citizens. Hibiscus Town has temporarily banished its slogan-shouting activist, but it is more difficult than Guhua imagines to banish politics from the dinner table. That's the end of the section. Taking some notes, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Oh. Cool. I will continue on reading. It says this next section of the chapter is titled Beyond Need. I'll continue. Perhaps this difficulty arises partly because eating is a pleasure, constituting one of the great goods of human existence. This, at least, is what Lu Wenfu's novella, The Gourmet, suggests, as it grounds its subtle repoliticization of food on the persistence of an aesthetics of eating. In this story, the questions raised by the appeal of beautiful food refuse to disappear, even in society's darkest hour and even against all the best efforts of Chinese asceto-Marxism. Never seen that before. To banish luxury from the people's desires. That's a good line. Asceto-Marxism. In this respect, it resembles Gu Hua with reference to dog meat that deliciously greasy local specialty that moistens yin and strengthens yang and warms the whole body on wintry days. This is a food that is strongly class marked, especially for working men on the streets. It makes a great snack and keeps them going on long hours. By confining his story to one small town in which nearly everyone belongs to the same social stratum, Earnest leftist classifiers are only able to find 20-some members of the 5 bad categories. Gu Hua was able to depict the entire social world as composed of those who, in effect, enjoy eating dog, but in more class-differentiated urban places and in the hands of authors who are less comfortable with a simplistic populism, tastes vary a great deal. Yeah, that makes sense, I think. Let me reread that for a second. Okay, yes, it says, but in more class-differentiated urban places, tastes vary a great deal. That's like the short version of that sentence. Um, um, anyways, I'll proceed on. I have a message here. Yes, but I will stop if you want. Um, Gourmet, a novella set in Suzhou and written in 1984, only a few years after Hibiscus Town, develops an aspect of the political problem of eating that is mostly avoided by the two works discussed above. Refusing to reduce the question of food to any simplistic definition of basic human needs, this narrative constantly invokes and complicates the pleasures that eating brings, showing that commensality is, almost by definition, riven by the displacement of discourse and the antagonisms of an asymmetrical social world. So I'll reread that for a second. It says, um, refusing to reduce the question of food to a simplistic definition of basic human needs. This narrative constantly invokes and complicates the pleasures that eating brings, showing that commensality is almost by definition riven by the displacements of discourse and the antagonisms of asymmetrical social world. Can carnal pleasure be separated from material exploitation in today's world? This is the problem that the Gourmet takes up and understandably fails to resolve. In the process, however, the story traces the unsettled moral habitus, as it were, of post-socialist Chinese eaters. Early in this delicious novella, the idleness of pre-liberation landlords is described as follows. Okay. I'll read this section here, but I will stop after that, just this next paragraph. It says, once Xu Zie had settled himself in a room in the bathhouse after lunch. He was like an invalid in the hospital. He did nothing whatsoever under his own power. Waiters brought and poured tea, masseurs. I think that, I don't know what that word is, but it says drew water. So I guess those are people who draw water. He didn't even have to remove his own shoes. Zhu was unwilling to lift a finger because he witlessly preferred to concentrate all his efforts on that stomach of his. He felt that since eating was a pleasure, digestion was also an inexpressibly refined beauty. One should devote oneself to knowing it experientially, and not allow externals to disperse one's attentive powers. The best way to concentrate this power was to soak in warm water, evacuating all thoughts, stilling all memories, just feeling the delicate movements of the stomach, such that the whole body had an unspeakable ease and sweetness. This was as wonderful as tasting fine food, though the two experiences could not be exchanged. Interesting. I will leave you with that as I'm going to stop reading this. I will probably end up streaming in a couple minutes on another book, but I'm going to stop appetites for now. Thank you for watching the 20-minute stream.